All right. I am here to talk about another cameo for use with Shang Tsung. Today we are going to be talking about Tremor. We're going to go over all of his moves. We're going to go over their applications in general, and we're going to go over how you use them in particular when you're using Shang Tsung. And we are going to talk about what weaknesses he covers for Shang, what strengths he enhances, and whether or not I think he is a good cameo pick overall for Shang. So, we are going to start by talking about his form changes. He each has three variations, and to change them, you use transmute up or transmute down, which is either down cameo or just neutral cameo. As you can see, changing forms is an ambush, and changing forms does not cost any cameo meter to do. So, whenever you feel like changing, all you have to do is change. All you do is press the button, and bam, you're in the next form. His three forms are metallic, Crystallin, and Aftershock. And each of these forms has different moves that can only be done in the form that they are for. And they're listed in the pause menu in his moves. Now, the most important thing about this is that if you use any of his moves, which are all normally summons, you can see that Shang had to stop what he was doing while Tremor did whatever his move was. Every move Tremor has is normally a summon, but if you use it out of his ambush variation change, then it will be used as an ambush, and it will take the full cameo meter, both bars. So, you can use any move that Tremor has as an ambush, even though they are normally summons. This is the core of Tremor's power. This is the only reason Tremor is even playable. And it is how you're going to use him almost every time you use him. Although Shang can get a little bit of utility out of some of his moves without needing to use them as an ambush. So that is one of the issues that comes up with him, is that because this uses the full cameo bar every time that you want to do one of these moves as an ambush, you end up having a lot less access to Tremor than you do to other cameos because he takes so long to recharge. And even longer to recharge to a point where you can use the ambush again, which is what you want to do. So Tremor is just a little less available than other cameos, and that's his biggest weakness. But having a ton of ambush moves is also a big strength. So let's go over what all of the moves actually are. And we'll talk about them as ambushes, and we'll talk about them as summons. So we'll start with Aftershock, which is his default form. He will always be an Aftershock when you start a match. First up, we have his forward cameo, which is Rock Punch. As you can see, that's a 20 frame high. That is 0 on block with interesting spacing. So you do like that, and you're just in sweep range. You're in range of a forward 3 in either young or old form. So you're at a really cool distance for Shang Tsung when Rock Punch comes out. When you use it as a summon, of course, you have this problem that you can't do anything else here. I mean, you're back in neutral, but you're in neutral at a good distance for Shang. So that's great. However, if you do it off of forward 4, 1, 2, 1, you're actually at just outside of sweep distance, but inside of your forward 3 distance, but just barely. Normally, sweep distance and forward 3 as Young Shang are almost the same, but in this scenario, they're actually not. So, that, we can't sweep him here. So you don't want to use this move after forward 4, 1, 2, 1. You want to stop at forward 4, 1, 2. You want to stop when he's throwing the bows, and then you're still in sweep range. That gives you the most options. So, the other problem with the move is just that it's a high, and you can always jab out of it. So, it is not terribly threatening for anybody who realizes it's a high. People who are blocking and not realizing that you're hitting them with a high, you can reset the neutral with this move, and perhaps more importantly, reset it without using the whole cameo meter, because you don't have to summon it as an ambush to do that. The move is also a a good way to send people full screen if they get hit. If your opponents are being a little too bold about this, we're going to have Liu Kang try to punish, because this move is actually fast enough that it cannot be punished while it's coming out by a normal move. So we're going to do like that. Now he's full screen. This is a great distance for us too. So on hit or on block, Rock Punch is cool. If our opponent, however, likes to crouch jab, then we're going to be put in a bad position by that. As you can see, he just crouches, counters me. But since the move cannot be jabbed out of like many Cameo moves can when you summon them, sometimes this will juke people. It can still be armored. This is a pretty normal quality for all of these moves to have. Is if we did this, our opponent could still armor through it. It only hits once. So you have to be wary of that. When used as an ambush, though, like all moves that Tremor has, it's going to be more powerful. But in order to use it as an ambush, we have to not be in Aftershock form, because we need to switch into it and then press the button for it. Now, as you can see, we were +7 there. We can probably do a little better than that. We can probably do better than +7 if we time it differently. But we're actually at this kind of cursed distance for Shang. All we get here is forward 4. Or forward 3 as old Shang. So it puts us at a bad distance when we use it as an ambush after our chip damage string. Although it does give us decent frame advantage. Unfortunately, we can't really find a way to use it reliably. So in the corner, this could give us a powerful situation, but most of the time we're going to avoid this move. It being a high and it creating this space is just not really what we want. If your opponent isn't realizing that it's a high, feel free to use it at the end of strings to try and see if you can toss your opponent full screen or get back to neutral. And in that way, being able to reset neutral is not the same as a block pressure, but it's better than what you normally do, which is give up your turn. So, the next move on the list is Rock Punch Upper Crust. As you can see, we have a pun. So, it's that. And you can see that it is a mid. It is the same speed as Rock Punch at 20 frames. So it is not something that your opponent can jab out of, but they can still armor out of it. And it is -16 on block, which is fully punishable. It has almost no pushback. Any opponent can punish this with anything they want. This is death on block. What it is, though, is a launcher. And you can get a full combo from that. The combos you end up getting from it are not very impressive. They're lower damage than Shang's normal combos. And this is about the same amount of punishable as Shang's normal combo starter. So, you know, they're both death on block. But that's, yeah, in fact, they're the exact same, -16. Of course, what you're going to do is do the mid-skull, which completely whips and get punished for that. But it's the same thing. You're getting punished either way. So, I would rate this as an almost useless move. It also does not have good frame data when used as an ambush. So, I'm going to have Tremor do that. And show what happens on block. So, Tremor ends up giving us something, but not much. Sometimes he's whipping completely. It is tough to use this to create block pressure. See, we ended up 0 on block there. That is not where we want to be when we're spending all this Cameo meter. We would like to be building pressure, not becoming neutral on block. So, it also doesn't beat gravity scaling as a launcher, so it's not something you can just toss into combos and then have them last longer. And it has pretty bad damage scaling as well. So, I would rate this as a move that you should probably never use. I know that this move is actually safe when used with Scorpion or Sub-Zero or Kung Lao. I'm not sure if it becomes safe when you morph into them, though. That's possible, worth investigating. If you find that it is, then I guess maybe you should consider that when you're playing against those characters, that Tremor is a better cameo for them than he is for Shang. Even still, I would just avoid using this move in all circumstances for Shang. And the final move in Aftershock is the one that is really good in Aftershock, and that is Ground Pound. It's right there, a low. Comes out in 27 frames, so this one can be comboed out of. Your opponent wants to do something like that as a reversal. They can. There you go, full combo punish. Even if we use a move that has a little bit better frame data, still, doesn't matter what we do, it's a full combo punish at 27 frames of startup. But it is a low. It has great reach, as you can see, right in this cursed distance for Shang Tsung, where we can't use forward 3 young and we can't sweep. All we can do is forward 3 old. We don't like that. We actually now have a safer option. From here to -12 isn't so bad. We might be able to get punished by a projectile, but we're definitely not going to eat a full combo. And we're still getting our low. And once you see what happens on hit, you'll be even more impressed with the move. Which is that. 75 damage on hit sends your opponent full screen. So, if we did something like this, even as part of a combo, full screen, now we can start our zoning game. So, if they get caught by a stray ground pound at the end of a string, if we're going, oh, our opponent's blocking, and then they just get hit by ground pound, now they're full screen, and we're happy. Now, as you can see, if they get hit just raw, it's not quite full screen. Now we're back to, you know, a little further than default. We still have the advantage here with our zoning, but this isn't like the best distance ever. So that's something to think about. However, when you use ground pound as an ambush, you end up with something much, much, much better than just a couple of hits. You can see that that animation is nice and long. So what that means for us is that we can do something like that, where they get stuck in the animation, and then we can move up and hit them while they're in that animation. I'm sure that Shang Tsung can get his ground skulls if you learn the spacing well. I'm not a Tremor player and haven't learned all of the little details about how to combo out of this. But it is definitely possible to use it to extend combos, but only as an ambush. When it's done as a summon, you can see that the whole time they're getting hit, Shang is stopped. When it's used as an ambush, Shang is not stopped for any of it, and you can carry on doing whatever you'd like. In fact, it's probably even possible to get Form Stealer combos because of how long that animation is. So, I'm very confident that we could turn into Liu Kang, something like that, while the animation is happening. But it would require some testing and some finagling that I'm just not able to nail down with Tremor. He is a harder cameo to play and requires a little bit more dedication than I want to give just to film a video about how he works. And that's something to know about Tremor in general, is just that he's sort of... he requires a little bit more engagement than most cameos. You're not just going to press one button and he's going to do what you want. You're going to end up pressing 2 most of the time to get the ambush system, and you have to monitor what form he's in to know whether you need to do down cameo or neutral cameo to switch into the next proper form to get the ambush you want. So he's just a little bit higher maintenance than some cameos. But if you like playing him and you think he's the cameo you want to play, then he won't be that difficult to get a grip on. One extra button is not exactly a huge demand. So the other things that are going on with this move are that it is not great for block pressure. When you use it on block as an ambush, it, as you can imagine, with all of these moves that are very negative, they are negative because they are not doing a ton of block stun, not because they have long recoveries. So in this scenario, I'm pressing wrong. You can see I'm not well versed with Tremor. As you can see, we actually still ended up -5 there. We can definitely do better than that and make ourselves plus, but we cannot make ourselves plus enough to make this forward 4 for the next string, guaranteed. So it puts this, we're hoping that we hit with the mix-up when we do this on block. As part of a block string, we're not hoping that we get to follow up with more pressure. Although we can probably still down one them or something if they block or poke or throw, maybe. But we're not going to be coming in with another mid for a real block string. It is also Tremor's invincible wake up for this form. Every form has an invincible wake up. And all of them are actually pretty good. So we're going to have Liu Kang do a meaty on wake up. And then we're going to say like that. And as you can see, the invincible wake up worked beautifully. As you can imagine, this move was already death on block. So it remains death on block when done as a invincible wake up. It was -12 before. I think it jumps to like -18 or something. We can have a look. That's not what we want. So gonna do that. -19. Yep. So that's death on block, even worse. Some people can now open up their most damaging routes, although everybody could always full combo punish it. So it's a risk, and it doesn't push people back far when they block it. So it is a serious risk, but it is an okay invincible wake up. It does what it says. Next, we will move into his metallic form, which is if you transmute up from Aftershock, you get metallic. Now, metallic has our first move is forward Cameo Lava Burst, is what this is called. Now, Lava Burst is a pretty decent move. It is a mid that deals 60 damage and has a 29 frame startup. So this move is punishable because it is 29 frame startup, so people can punish the gap between my hits and Tremor coming out with every string Shang Tsung has. So you can get full combo punished if they think that you're going to do this. However, you have other Cameo moves that might come out, like your Rock Punch, which is too fast to punish with a full combo, or your Upper Crust, which is also too fast to punish with a full combo. So if they're afraid of something like that, they might just be respecting this. And if they're respecting this, it's great, because it is a mid that makes you +4 on block. It puts you in the curse distance for Shang Tsung. No sweep, although you do get your young forward 3. So it's not the worst distance ever. But it's not a good distance for Shang Tsung. But it's +4. So you're basically back in neutral again in a similar way to Rock Punch. However, this move is a mid. So it's a lot better than Rock Punch for that reason. If it hits, it does not send our opponent very far, but it gives us 42 frames of hit advantage for Oki. So we can do whatever we want for Oki if that move hits. It's not bad at all. Now, where this move really shines is when we use it as an ambush to make block pressure. Now that put us at +14. +18 there. So this is enough for us to go into our old form and forward 3 easily. This is even enough when timed properly, because I'm sure that plus 18 is not the best we can do, to guarantee us our overhead as well. And for us to dash up and do forward 4. So we get to do whatever we want. We make real block pressure by using Lava Burst as an ambush. And when done as an ambush, you can see eats our whole bar. Pretty normal recharge rate, but it has to recharge 2 bars before we get to use something like that again. So keep in mind when you're using this to make block pressure that you are giving up your Cameo for a while. And if you get the hit on as part of the block pressure, you just end up with a really good Oki situation, so you're basically in the same position, except they took more damage. Now, of course, enemies can always armor out of block pressure, and they can armor or even just jab you out of this move, but they need to know that it's this move that's coming. And they can't do that when it's an ambush, they can only do that as a summon. So this is also the invincible wake up for this form. So we're going to have Liu Kang do his meaty again. And show how it works as an invincible wake up. Which is to say that it works pretty well. Now it only gets 21 frames of hit advantage, but you're very close. So you can just come in for a forward 4. You can do whatever you want for Oki pressure. And it doesn't get beat by meaties. It does get worse on block once you use it as a invincible wake up. So what happens here is that if our opponent blocked, we're negative 18, but we have pretty good spacing for this, actually, because at this spacing, it is hard for people to punish. Now, almost anybody can punish you with a projectile here, but they might not know that, especially because not a lot of people play Tremor, so this is a weird thing to know, and even when people do play Tremor, they don't use this invincible wake up very often. So they might not be aware that they can punish this, and they can't punish it with any normal moves. So they're going to have to... They might be able to dash up and punish you. It would depend a little bit on their frame data and their dash and how good they are at doing it. But I don't think you're going to get punished for this very often when your opponent blocks it, even though it is punishable. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, the next move in Metallic is Eruption. I think this might be Tremor's worst move. There it is. Shoots an eruption of lava up in the air. Now, this move is basically used to juggle. It is 26 frames, so it is a terrible anti-air. It is not fast enough to anti-air people. Don't try it. You will get blown up constantly for that. Just use Standing 4 to anti-air people as Shang. Or if you're young, you can use Bed of Spikes to anti-air people. But don't try using Eruption. Now, it could also be used as a combo extender, but not for Shang. For Shang, this move is just not going to do the trick. Yeah, doesn't even work. Now, it might work with something like this. Yeah, there you go. You can probably get an extension off of that. It's probably not very good. And even if it's alright, I mean, this is just not a great use for the Cameo. Because Cameo meter is a lot more valuable than some crappy extension. Yeah, you might actually not even be able to get the extension there. This move is just bad. Using it as an ambush is also bad because what are you getting off of this? You're not hitting anybody on the ground still. So you can use it as a combo extension during that, but it's not very impressive. It can probably be used to do something like a Form Stealer combo, but it will be really tight. and hard to perform because it does not give you a ton of gravity to play with. It doesn't give you a ton of anti-gravity to play with the way that ground skulls do, or the way that like Kano knives do. Even Sector Missile does a better job at it. I would just, if you can find Form Stealer combos with this, then I would consider doing it. And if you can't, I would just never touch this move. Even if you can find Form Stealer combos, you have to know that you're eating your full Cameo bar to do a combo that's going to be lower damage than if you had just done a Shang combo anyway for the most of the time, and you're going to spend meter on it. It's going to be very resource intensive to do something that's probably not very good. You're also then going to have to play the game as your opponent, while your opponent knows the mirror match better than you do, because you don't play this character. So, I think Eruption is just a move you don't touch. But the last move in Metallic is a move that Shang is in love with. This is a fantastic move for Shang, and that is Rock Toss and its held version. So this is Rock Toss. If you don't hold it, it is a low projectile. It does 50 damage and has a 64 frame advantage knockdown. That is amazing. Love everything about it. It's the only thing that's bad about it is its startup is slow at 38 frames. This move's great. I would use it a lot. And anybody who doesn't have other good projectiles is going to just lose to this every time. And even people who do, you can mix it up with your skulls. If you're doing triple skull and they think that's what's coming, and then you do single skull plus rock toss, now you've just juked them, and it's a low. But that's not all it is, because if you hold the Cameo button after pressing back, it's an overhead now instead, and it comes out faster at 23 frames. So now we go triple skull, they block, we go single skull, and we do a low. Next time we're going to do single skull and then overhead. And if our opponent tries to jump, they get hit. Now the way to beat the overhead is to dash up, because it has an arc that doesn't let it hit people who aren't close to full screen. But if they're afraid of straight skulls, they might do that. And because this is an ambush, we can always just do something belligerent. Like, we're going to call Tremor while we fire our triple skulls. Like that. And we can lock our opponent into frame trap situations with overhead low mix on our zoning. While we're firing triple skulls, we can either throw a low or we can throw an overhead. And when those things connect right after the triple skulls, we can frame trap into ground skull off of them. This is just gross. This is fantastic. This is exactly what we want to be doing. The problem is how much of our Cameo meter it takes, which means that it's incredibly resource intensive. But it's incredibly good too. And we don't have to spend the Cameo we don't have to spend all the Cameo meter. We can just use this normally. It's still pretty good that way. It's not creating these frame traps anymore, but it is good. If our opponent is blocking it, we end up with quite a bit of advantage, actually. So we kind of are still making frame traps here. If they block that, we have 28 frames of advantage. So if they block that, we do frame trap them into a ground skull. And with the overhead, it doesn't actually tell us how many frames of advantage that we get. Let's see if it says it here. It says 0 and 4. But yeah, this isn't at full screen. So it's not clear how much the overhead gives, but I think it's safe to say that the overhead probably gives you enough to frame trap into ground skull. So even if you're not using these as ambushes, if your opponent is blocking them, you get free ground skulls. That's fantastic. It's a really, really great zoning tool. The other thing that it's going to give us is that this Rock Toss is actually plus on block point blank. Plus 4. So, you know, you can go into a throw, you can go into a jab. If your opponent's respecting you, you can go into your mid. And if they're respecting you, you can go into your 2-4 to get another plus frame. So, The problem with this, of course, is that with, what is it, 38 frames of startup, this move is super easy to punish on reaction for a full combo. Your opponent has to be respecting you a little too much or not realize that Tremor has a move that takes that long to come out. And as you can see, the overhead one just simply doesn't connect at all. So we can't use that. So Rock Toss is just, it's everything for Shang. This is like the reason that you're going to play Tremor is going to be Rolling Rock. Or Rock, yeah, Rolling Rock and Rock Toss here. It is just a really, really powerful tool. And because their lows are overheads, they also force people to respect your triple skulls when used as an ambush, right? If your opponent doesn't want to get hit by that, they're going to have to block the triple skulls as well, make them take a ton of damage, and then when they block the triple skulls, they're trapped in this frame trap, and it's just a terrible, terrible scenario for them every time. So I encourage you to use the Rock Toss and Rolling Rock generously when playing as Shang. Now, on hit, as you can see, it chucks him pretty far. So, it's doing everything you want a zoning tool to do. Now, obviously, you need to be very careful with Rock Toss. You can't just throw it out there every time. Your opponent really needs to be respecting you in order for that move to work. But Rolling Rock is fantastic anyway. And like I said, gives them a nice chuck. And Rock Toss doesn't actually knock them over. It leaves them standing. So, it is less powerful than Rolling Rock anyway. If you're picking Tremor with Shang, I think this is the reason you're picking him, is to get access to new zoning tools that are lows and overheads, and make Shang have full screen mix-ups. They're telegraphed mix-ups, they're easy to deal with mix-ups overall, but then they also make frame traps into Ground Skull, and Ground Skull gives you a full combo, so it's amazing. Now, Tremor's final form is Crystallin. Crystallin only has 2 moves. It has Crystal Wall Punch. Yep, Crystal Wall Punch. This is an interesting move. It is a high that does 60 damage and chucks your opponent just about full screen. Yep, just like that. Now we're at great zoning distance. And it reflects projectiles. So, I'm going to have Liu Kang send his Enhanced Cosmic Flame our way. And then we're going to punch it back at him. Just like that. Now, this is not a move that you can hold like Motaro. I held the button there. That's how long it lasts. So you do need to time this properly to toss projectiles back at people. And it's more finicky. And if your opponent closes the gap while you're doing this, they might get punched by Tremor and sent back to full screen, which is pretty great. So, in zoning wars, this is a powerful tool. If your opponent is doing dash ups and then, like Liu Kang, firing really good projectiles at you as they dash up, you can send them all the way back by using a Tremor Reflect. And even if they close the gap, they get hit by Tremor and get sent all the way back. So they don't have an option where they just mindlessly run in anymore. This is also the invincible wake up for Crystallin form. So we'll have Liu Kang do his reversal again. Now, as you can see, on block it's -20 when it's done as an invincible wake up, where normally the move is -8 at a spacing that is pretty good and is impossible to punish. They can't do an 8-frame punish here. You did kind of lose your turn, but you're at this sweep distance that many people will not exploit, and they might just press a bad button or dash back or dash up or something, which would let you take your turn back with a fast button, like a down 1 or a poke. So, Now, as you can see, if you use forward 4-1-2-1 with it, it gets worse. If you do this, you're outside of sweep distance, or you're outside of poke distance, which is where you would like to be, is where you can use down 3. But if you use it off of your forward 4-1-2, you're still just outside of poke distance in sweep distance. You're kind of resetting the neutral when you do it. It's not great, and it's a high, so people can blow it up by just crouching. But it is a thing that you can do. The other move that he ends up using in this mode is much more of a gimmick, unfortunately. It is this crystal armor. As you could see, when we do this as a summon, it takes 60 frames. 60, not 16. This means that everybody just punishes this on reaction. It's incredibly easy to blow up. At full screen, everybody can punish it on reaction. It does not matter. Never, ever, ever use this move as a summon. Your opponent will absolutely blow you up for it. The only reason they wouldn't is that they see Tremor and they're like, oh, I think Tremor's going to do something else, so I'm trying to defend against that. Sometimes that works. Don't count on it continuing to work. This is so many frames for them to realize that Tremor isn't really doing that. And at full screen, they can't even see Tremor, so of course they're not going to respect what they don't see happening. So you're going to use this move always, always, always as an ambush, right? You're going to do this, and as you can see, if you move too much, you will get out of range for it. But you're going to go like this, right? And what this move does is it makes you have different hit reactions when you get punched, hit by anything. If you have it on, as you can see, I can't be launched, I can't be knocked down, I also can't be thrown. So we still take the damage from whatever our opponent is doing, but for the whole time that that's active, we don't have the same hit reaction, which means sometimes we can actually combo our enemy on a hit. We get a punish. Like that. Now we still have some kind of hit reaction, so they can hit us out of moves. But the fact that we can often beat them on a hit is pretty remarkable. So this move is mostly interesting for zoning. What you're going to do is you're going to stand back here. You're going to launch your skulls, you know, and then you're going to say, you know, I want Tremor to come out and do this, and I'm going to keep shooting. And if my opponent shoots back, I just will keep firing because I have so little hit stun. Even if they use like a crushing projectile that would normally knock us over, we're not going to get knocked over, and we're going to keep shooting. So it's an interesting tool for that, but it's not incredible just because it takes so much of our Cameo meter, and it involves Tremor coming out in front of us and then giving it to us during our moves, and then it like might not really do what we want it to do, and we still take the damage. So usually we're better off doing something like a rock toss or rolling rock if we're going to do ambush assists while our zoning is being used. But it is an option, and it's an interesting one. If you think your opponent's going to close the gap, you could use it to try and get, you know, it'll keep you from getting comboed, even if it doesn't give you a punish when they hit you, which it can do. So those are all of Tremor's moves, and that brings us to my overall thoughts about Tremor. The final thing I forgot to mention actually is Tremor's Crystallin Crystal Wall Punch on Invincible Wake Up here. It's a good Invincible Wake Up just like his other ones. That only gives us 9 frames of advantage there. And if our opponent blocks, we will end up in a worse position as well. -20. Yeah, that's very punishable, even at this spacing. So, not his best invincible wake up, that's for sure, but it does do the basic function of invincible wake up. It's nowhere near as good as his lava burst, which is really his ideal invincible wake up. So overall, I think Tremor is a very good pick for Shang. His moves are very good for Shang. The problem is his availability is what really holds him back from being a top tier pick for Shang. He's just not very available. You're going to call him as an ambush. It's going to take up his whole meter. It's going to take forever for that meter to come back. It's not as heinous as something like Darius, but it is bad. And one of the best abilities for a Cameo is availability, and he doesn't have a lot of that. But he gives zoning mix-ups, which really, really good, and they always make frame traps into ground skulls, and frame traps into ground skulls are one of Shang's best features. So it really does enhance something that is amazing about Shang. Other small weaknesses in Tremor are this Aftershock is actually considered a projectile. So if we have our opponent sub-zero after waking up, after blocking, you'll see that this move, we're like, oh, it has this cool spacing. Yeah, but it actually does count as a projectile. And of course, so do his rolling rock and his rock toss are naturally projectiles. It might surprise you to learn that lava burst is not a projectile, and it will actually hit the sub-zero if you're close enough when he does it. So you can use that to punch through some stuff because it has pretty decent reach as well. So it does kind of give us options against projectile immunity, but the best moves that he has do all get beaten by projectile immunity. You know, this is... We wanted Rolling Rock to be great, but Rolling Rock and Rock Toss are both projectiles. His Ground Pound is a projectile. So projectile immunity is... It can be beat by Lava Burst or Rock Punch. Even Crystal Armor, not considered a projectile. So we kind of have options, but not really anything much better than what Shang was doing already. But... So it's not really dealing with that weakness. It is giving us block pressure, but that block pressure is very limited by the amount of times we can use the Cameo in a match. So it does cover that weakness. It doesn't cover it incredibly well. The form change for Tremor requires more attention. Now you're going to be managing Shang's stances and managing Tremor's stances. So it just requires a little bit more on your mental stack, which is never an advantage to you. It's not a big deal. I don't think that this is something that's really going to impede anybody who wants to do it. But it's something to know when you're picking it up. It's just going to take you a little bit longer to pick him up because you're going to have more on your mental stack, worrying about his form as well as Shang's form. And Form Stealer combos I know are possible. I know that you can use the Ground Pound to get an EX Injection combo so that you can do something where you Form Steal and then also continue the combo. I don't actually know the proper timing for this. So, I know you can do it there and get your Form Steal combo with EX Injection. I'm reasonably confident you could make an Eruption combo work for Form Stealer. And if you use it as an ambush, I'm reasonably confident that you could get the Upper Crust to allow you to Form Steal as well. But you're going to have to find different routes than the normal Shang Ground Skulls into some kind of extender into Form Stealer. Instead, you're going to want to hit them from the ground into Upper Crust for the Form Stealer because that will give you the best gravity situation. Because it doesn't really have a lot of anti-gravity effect. The eruption, of course, you have to have them in the air. It probably has enough anti-gravity effect to do this, but it will be difficult, and you're probably going to get shorter combos off of it. And it's just going to require you to really run through it and break down how you can do this yourself instead of having somebody hand it to you on a silver platter, what every form stealer is going to look like with Tremor. And it might be different per character where you want to fire eruption for maximum effect, maximum damage. So overall, I think he has very strong moves for Shang, but he just doesn't get to use them enough, and that is why I don't pick him. And that is why, if somebody was telling me what do you think the best cameo is for Shang Tsung, I definitely wouldn't say Tremor, because I don't think Tremor is doing things often enough for him to be the best. However, I do think that he has several very strong moves that are very worthy of consideration, and if you want to play Tremor Shang, you can definitely play Tremor Shang. You'll get away with it. You just need to learn how to do it. So, that's the video. If you enjoyed it, give me a like, a comment, a subscribe, join my Discord, come play Mortal Kombat or Tekken or, Escape from Tarkov, Civilization. I play a lot of different games. And come over and follow me on Twitch and follow me live. I play on Rips Arena. I play in some other tournaments online for Mortal Kombat. When Crossplay comes out, I plan to play in just about every tournament that'll let me play. And I've been playing some Tekken and Escape from Tarkov on there too. So if you enjoy watching any of those, come on over. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.